just recently the best AI open source image generation model that we ever had released, and its name is Flux. The model is so much better at so many things that AI image generation models are supposed to be bad at, that we don't even know how to categorize some of these things. The quality of the images is unparalleled. There's a bunch of different innovations that the model has. It can generate images from all kinds of different styles. It can generate in a very realistic style, in a kind of fake full realistic style. It can generate images in this sort of presentation style. It's insane. And the crazy part is, if you want to generate images in all of these styles, all you really need access to, at least as of right now anyway, is just the prompt. Because the prompt adherence, or the language following ability of the model, is so high, you have an unparalleled ability to be able to control the generation of the model. You could have something like, say, a man and a woman standing in a park. The man wears a white hat, the woman wears a red cap. The man wears a blue shirt, the woman wears a yellow shirt, the woman has a white skirt, the guy has green pants. You could say that, and Flux will have the ability to adequately be able to distinguish between those two concepts, not get confused, generate the two people, have them interact with each other. It's insane. There's so much stuff that all of the models that we used to have just can't do. Everything from obviously SD 1.5, SD XL, but SD 3, which is just looking worse and worse by the minute compared to all of the other models. I know I have not made a video about SD 3, but for the most part, it's not very good. It's really bad, and it's kind of a major skip from everybody, okay? So Flux essentially comes in at a time and drops a bomb on the entire image generation space. Everybody collectively stopped whatever they were doing and decided that Flux was the thing that they were going to be doing instead. Black Forest Labs, the creators of Flux, are actually the original researchers behind the latent diffusion model. The latent diffusion model being the concept that eventually led to models like Stable Diffusion. They also were the original creators of Stable Diffusion as well, by the way. They now have, seemingly after going into the shadows, decided to come back with a bang and drop on us the best model that we've ever seen. I've never felt this level of exploration and excitement since maybe the release of SD 1.5. When Stable Diffusion actually released on the first day, like paying attention to all of the bits and pieces of news, waiting for the slightest update, having to resort to every single like back channel and stuff that they had. I've never felt the same way about a model until Flux came out. At this point, Flux has been out for like about a week, and when it released, there was a lot of chatter around what you could do with the model. For example, a lot of people thought that you wouldn't be able to train the model because Flux is not a model per se in the traditional sense. Typically, you'd have your model weight, you take your data, you train the weights but via some process by taking this data and mapping it onto the model via some like direct training of the data onto the model. Flux is not trained like that. Flux is trained from a very large founder model that the Black Forest Labs developers has on their website. The same backend that is used to power Grok 2 is now something that they're using as well. And then they take that and they distill the model, effectively taking this large model and creating a smaller version of that model that is an approximation of the big model. And that's how Flux, the one that we receive anyway, was trained. This is not the traditional process of training, and it leads to certain problems if you directly try to train the weights of the model. Like if you try to add data to this model, there should be all kinds of issues. But in practicality, what we're realizing is that people have been able at every turn to circumvent a lot of the problems that exist with training on a distilled model. We're seeing now with Flux, LoRa's starting to release, control nets starting to release, potential for IP adapters, and all these other things that you wouldn't even think possible necessarily. Keep in mind, it's baby steps at this point. It's not necessarily all well put together and the bestest things in the entire world. It is a step. We're just edging closer and 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 closer. And all these things that seem like they would be impossibilities are now starting to become possibilities. Ultimately, I've never been more impressed recently. Like, I felt like with AI image generation and stuff was kind of slowing down a little bit. Wasn't as much exciting stuff. There's all these models that were coming out, but none of them were really better than SDXL. Even SD3 was just like, it was so bad. It was just not there. So all these models were coming out, and then all of a sudden Flux comes out and completely throws this. I was so pessimistic as soon as I saw the thing. I was like, oh, how good could it realistically be? But I went onto their website and I saw some of the images, and my mind was like blown looking at these things. And I know, you go onto their website, these are marketing images, they're not going to be that good. And on top of that, they showed the images from their biggest model, even though the one you could download is a smaller model. Classic marketing technique, you know? But still, I go use the model, and I was impressed. I couldn't believe its prompt following ability, its ability to generate basic things like hands, literally hands. It could generate hands, guys. It does hands. Its ability to be able to do basic things like write text, to have people holding signs, to have people with shirts on, to have more conceptual things like being able to have a presentation on screen that shows certain like concepts or whatever. It's insane. And then being able to do things like show weird CCTV footage or weird dash cam footage, all manner of just insane combinations because of the size of the model relative to all the stuff. Flux effectively is the new era of text-to-image generation. If you want to look at open source text-to-image generation, you had all the disparate models that existed before SD 1.5, that all of them were kind of okay. They weren't really that good, if we're being honest, right? But then SD 1.5 comes out, and there's a massive jump in terms of what you can do. And a massive jump in terms of community focus and effort and all of these things kind of coalescing together. And all of a sudden, what people expect from a model jumps significantly. And then we have a few SD releases. Most of them fail, up until we have like SDXL, which on release wasn't necessarily that successful, but slowly over time caught up more and more and more and more, and eventually superseded SD 1.5 and became like the new era. And I'm willing to say, like, from SD 1.5 to SDXL, this was the next, step. Even though we had a bunch of other periphery models, none of them really coalesced with all the features and things that you could see from SDXL. And for a while, we were kind of stuck here. We had all these other models releasing that never were really that good. And then eventually we had SD3, which was supposed to be the next big thing, SD3. And that failed so spectacularly that it's hard to even put into words. I mean, the CEO left the company for the love. Oh my God, it was so bad. Okay, I'm not saying he necessarily left because SD3 was like bad. I'm sure there's a bunch of other things that were going on. But my point is that SD3 definitely, if SD3 was through the moon, the best thing in the world, oh my God, best model to have ever released ever, then if anything, you probably want to keep pursuing what you were doing, right? You understand? Regardless, what we're seeing now with Flux is the next from SD 1.5 to SDXL. Now we finally have entered that new generation of AI image generation model. And honestly, I'm glad that we finally were able to get there. For you guys, hopefully you guys, this is not your first time hearing about Flux, and you've actually been using it already. I know I'm late with this video. I know people have probably already seen your Flux videos or whatever. But still, I still want to make a video about it because maybe some people don't know. They didn't know about the fact of the Black Forest developers being the originators of SD. They literally were responsible for two of the innovations, right? SD 1.5 and Flux were both made by the same people. They were both made by the same people, right? So yeah, and the crazy part is they're also now working on a text to video model, which they've already previewed. And it looks way better than anything. I think they also worked on SVD, so they also worked on stable video diffusion as well. Stable video diffusion wasn't that good necessarily, but SD 1.5 compared to our standards right now wasn't that good, like realistically, right? Like in terms of the base model that released. So, but if you look at the video diffusion model from these same developers that just innovated the image generation space, I mean, Jesus Christ, the model looks insane. Of course, more than likely, if they're showing preview videos, it's probably going to be the same thing that they did, where they have some proprietary thing, and then they have some model that they release to the public, or whatever it is. That's some downgraded version or whatever. Doesn't matter, because likely we're going to see a massive jump in terms of what we can do, and honestly, I can't wait. Guys, thanks for watching the video. I'll catch you in the next video, and